Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the latest dramatic twists on the bold and the beautiful. Today is a beautiful day to explore the intricate web of romance, betrayal, and tragedy that defines our favorite daytime drama. We have a truly heartbreaking development to discuss that will shake the core of the Spencer and Forrester families, shifting the narrative from corporate warfare to a desperate fight for survival. Let us explore the emotional wreckage of this upcoming, life-altering storyline. The atmosphere inside the walls of Forrester Creations has been nothing short of suffocating in recent weeks. The prestigious fashion house, usually a beacon of creativity and glamour, has transformed into a toxic battleground of bruised egos and unresolved romantic entanglements. At the epicenter of this brewing storm is the design office, a room that has witnessed some of the most vicious verbal sparring in the company's storied history. The tension has been steadily escalating, driven by the bitter, multifaceted rivalry between Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester. Their animosity is not merely a clash of personalities. It is a deep-seated war for dominance, legacy, and, most importantly, the heart of Electra Forrester. Every interaction between the two young men is laced with venom, setting the stage for a confrontation that is as inevitable as it is destructive. On this fateful afternoon, the design office becomes the arena for their most explosive clash yet. The subject of their fiery debate is the newly revitalized jewelry line, a project that Electra Forrester has recently taken over following the scandalous and unceremonious departure of her aunt, Ivy Forrester. Electra's ascension to the head of the jewelry division was supposed to be a moment of professional triumph, a chance for her to prove her worth outside the shadow of her family's manipulative legacy. Instead, it has become yet another proxy war for Will and RJ. Sketches of intricate necklaces and dazzling diamond bracelets are scattered across the massive oak table, but neither man is truly looking at the art. They are looking at each other, their eyes locked in a ferocious battle of wills. Using Electra's professional endeavors as ammunition in their personal vendetta, R.J. Forrester, fueled by a potent cocktail of entitlement and jealousy, goes on the offensive. He paces the room like a caged predator, his voice echoing off the glass walls as he relentlessly critiques Will's involvement in the jewelry project. R.J. weaponizes his status as a born Forrester, implicitly and explicitly suggesting that a Spencer has no business dictating the creative direction of a Forrester Creations line. He accuses Will of using the project as a manipulative ploy to keep Electra tethered to him, completely disregarding the genuine affection and history Will shares with her. RJ's words are designed to inflict maximum psychological damage, probing at Will's insecurities and attempting to paint him as an opportunistic outsider who is desperately clinging to a romance that has already slipped through his fingers. Will Spencer, determined to maintain his composure in the face of RJ's relentless assault, stands his ground. He refuses to be bullied out of the room or out of Electra's life. Will fires back, his voice low and dangerous, reminding RJ that his so-called Forrester birthright does not give him a monopoly on talent, nor does it grant him ownership over Electra's choices. He defends his contributions to the jewelry line, arguing that his business acumen is exactly what Electra needs to elevate the collection from mere accessories to global sensations. However, beneath Will's stoic exterior, a different kind of battle is beginning to rage. The toxic atmosphere, the relentless stress of the love quadrangle involving Melissa Dillon, and the sheer volume of the argument are taking an unseen, catastrophic toll on his physical body. As the argument reaches a fever pitch, the air in the design office grows incredibly thick, almost impossible to breathe. RJ crosses the room, getting dangerously close to Will, his finger jabbing through the air as he delivers another blistering insult. Will opens his mouth to deliver a devastating retort, perhaps to finally put RJ in his place once and for all, but the words never materialize. Instead, a sudden, terrifying sensation grips Will's chest. It is an invisible vice, tightening with agonizing force, stealing the oxygen from his lungs. The vibrant colors of the design office begin to wash out, replaced by a creeping, dizzying grayness. Will raises a trembling hand to his chest, his confident posture crumbling in an instant as a cold sweat breaks out across his forehead. He collapses, his body crashing heavily into the edge of the design table before hitting the hardwood floor with a sickening thud. The impact sends a tray of Electra's delicate jewelry prototypes flying into the air, raining down around Will's motionless form in a cruel, glittering mockery of the tragedy that has just unfolded. The cacophony of the argument is instantly replaced by a deafening, horrifying silence, broken only by the sound of stray pearl rolling across the floorboards. R.J. Forrester is frozen in place, a statue of pure, unadulterated shock. The self-righteous anger that had consumed him just seconds prior evaporates completely, leaving behind a hollow, paralyzing dread. He stares down at his rival, his mind struggling to process the visual information. This is not a dramatic pause. This is not a manipulative tactic. Will is lying unnaturally still, his face frighteningly pale, his breathing shallow and erratic. RJ's hands begin to shake as the gravity of the situation crashes over him. The petty squabbles over fashion lines, the jealous maneuvering for Electra's affection, the bitter corporate rivalry, all of it is instantly rendered utterly meaningless in the face of sudden, terrifying mortality. At that exact moment, the heavy glass door of the design office swings open. Bill Spencer strides into the room, radiating the kind of supreme confidence and arrogant power that only a man of his stature can muster. He has arrived at Forrester Creations not as a supplicant, but as a conqueror. Riding high on the monumental global success of the newly launched Logan brand, Bill has come to discuss the Logan collection, fully prepared to flaunt his triumph in the faces of Ridge and Steffi. He is dressed impeccably, a predatory smile playing on his lips as he anticipates a delicious corporate skirmish. He expects to find designers scrambling, executives fuming, or perhaps his son holding his own in a boardroom battle. He expects victory. Nothing in Bill Spencer's vast empire, no amount of wealth or power, could have prepared him for the sight that greets him. The arrogant smile dies on his lips instantly, replaced by a mask of pure, uncomprehending horror. His eyes lock onto the lifeless form of his son, lying amidst the scattered jewelry. The transition from ruthless titan of industry to desperately terrified father is instantaneous and heartbreaking. The expensive leather briefcase slips from his grasp, hitting the floor with a heavy thud that echoes through the silent room. The name of his son tears from Bill's throat, not as a command, but as a primal, agonizing scream of a parent witnessing their worst nightmare unfold in real time. Bill drops to his knees beside his son, completely ignoring RJ, who is still standing in paralyzed shock. Bill's large, powerful hands are trembling violently as he reaches out to touch Will's pale face. He frantically checks for a pulse, his own heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He roars for an ambulance, his voice cracking with a desperation that he has never shown to the world. The invincible billionaire is gone, replaced by a man who is utterly powerless, begging the universe to spare his child. The chaotic scene is a stark, devastating contrast to the glamorous world of high fashion that usually occupies this space. It is a moment of raw, unfiltered human vulnerability. The transition from the opulent halls of Forrester Creations to the sterile, unforgiving environment of the hospital emergency room is a blur of flashing sirens and agonizing panic. The hospital waiting room is a purgatory of fluorescent lights and the smell of strong antiseptic. Bill Spencer paces the length of the corridor like a caged, wounded lion. His perfectly styled hair is disheveled, his expensive suit jacket discarded. Every second that ticks by on the large wall clock feels like a physical blow. He replays the image of Will collapsing over and over in his mind, torturing himself with questions he cannot answer. How could this happen? Will is young, vibrant, supposedly in the prime of his life. The sheer impossibility of the situation threatens to pull Bill into a dark abyss of despair. The heavy double doors of the waiting area burst open, and Katie Logan Spencer rushes into the room. Her arrival shifts the emotional frequency of the space from frantic pacing to profound, shared agony. Katie's face is a portrait of a mother's ultimate terror. The triumphant glow she had been wearing since the success of the Logan brand's debut collection has been entirely extinguished, replaced by a haunting pallor. When she sees Bill, she does not ask for a corporate update. She simply collapses into his arms. They hold onto each other with a desperate, crushing grip, two parents united in a nightmare they cannot wake up from. In this sterile hallway, their past grievances, their divorces, and their complicated history dissolve completely, leaving only their shared love for the boy fighting for his life behind the closed doors. The agonizing wait is finally broken by the appearance of the lead cardiologist. The doctor's face is a mask of professional gravity, a look that sends a fresh wave of terror crashing over Bill and Katie. The heavy silence that falls over the waiting room is deafening as the medical professional approaches. The doctor does not offer empty platitudes. He delivers the diagnosis with a clinical precision that carries the devastating weight of a death sentence. Will has suffered a catastrophic cardiac event. Specifically, the doctor reveals that Will is suffering from a severe, life-threatening issue with his heart valve. The words hang in the air, cold and clinical, yet violently destructive to the reality the Spencers thought they knew. But the doctor is not finished. As he elaborates on the nature of the valve defect, a horrifying context begins to emerge. He explains that this is not a random occurrence, not a fluke of nature or the result of sudden stress. The structural abnormality in Will's heart is deeply rooted in his DNA. It is a genetic complication, a hereditary shadow that has lain dormant until this very moment. The doctor's gaze shifts gently toward Katie as he speaks, acknowledging her well-documented medical history. The monumental success of the Logan brand has sent shockwaves through the very foundation of the Los Angeles fashion industry, transforming a highly anticipated debut into a global phenomenon. Billboards featuring Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer's spectacular new collection are currently illuminating the skies of major fashion capitals, from the bustling streets of New York to the romantic avenues of Paris and Milan. This unprecedented marketing blitz, funded by the seemingly bottomless pockets of the Spencer media empire, has propelled Katie into the upper echelons of high fashion. For Katie, this moment was supposed to be the glorious culmination of a lifelong dream, a definitive statement that she could build a legacy entirely independent of the towering Forster shadow. However, the glittering facade of these billboards hides a deeply controversial and legally precarious truth. The breathtaking garments captivating the world are not the product of a new, visionary designer, but rather the stolen, brilliant concepts of the legendary Eric Forster. The visual dominance of the Logan brand on the global stage has become an agonizing thorn in the side of the Forster family, igniting a firestorm of resentment and outrage within the walls of Forster Creations. Every time a member of the Forster family looks up at the city skyline, they're forcefully reminded of what they perceive as a catastrophic intellectual property theft. Steffi Forster Finnegan, already operating under a ruthless and authoritarian corporate mindset after halting the Hope for the Future line, views this success not merely as a business rivalry, but as an unforgivable, existential threat to her family's heritage. Steffi's blood boils at the sight of the Logan name plastered across designs that bear the unmistakable, classic signature of her grandfather. She refuses to allow Katie and Bill to profit off the genius of Eric Forster, viewing their actions as a parasitic drain on the Forster legacy that must be violently severed. Driven by an unyielding desire for retribution, Steffi launches a relentless campaign of pressure against her father, Ridge Forster. Historically, Ridge has often attempted to navigate the treacherous waters of family and business with a degree of passivity, especially when the conflicts involve the Logan women he holds dear. However, The sheer magnitude of the Logan brand success, coupled with Steffi's ferocious insistence, leaves Ridge with no avenue for retreat. Steffi corners him in the executive boardroom, presenting the situation as a dire test of his loyalty to his father and the company they have built. She argues passionately that allowing Katie and Bill to escape unpunished would set a disastrous precedent, effectively inviting anyone to pillage their archives. Under the crushing weight of Steffi's ultimatums and his own simmering anger over the blatant theft, Ridge is pushed to the absolute brink. In a moment that will forever alter the landscape of both families, Ridge Forrester formally signs a catastrophic, multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Katie Logan Spencer, charging her and the Logan brand with egregious copyright infringement and the theft of intellectual property. The physical act of signing those legal documents is heavy with tragic significance. With every stroke of his pen, Ridge is not just initiating a corporate legal battle. He is declaring an all-out war on his wife's sister. The lawsuit demands astronomical financial restitution, a sum so staggering that it threatens to entirely bankrupt the newly formed Logan brand and personally ruin Katie. The legal papers are a cold, unforgiving declaration that the Forresters will stop at nothing to reclaim what is rightfully theirs, setting the stage for a brutal confrontation that will take no prisoners. When the devastating legal documents are finally served to Katie, the atmosphere in the Spencer penthouse shifts instantly from triumphant celebration to suffocating dread. Katie, who had been riding the euphoric high of her global billboard launch, feels the ground vanish beneath her feet as she reads the terrifying demands outlined in the lawsuit. A profound, paralyzing guilt that she had desperately tried to suppress finally bubbles to the surface. Deep down, Katie has always known that building her empire on the foundation of Eric's unreleased designs was a moral compromise. She had justified it to herself by clinging to the verbal promises Eric had made before abandoning her startup to return to Forrester Creations. But facing the cold, hard reality of a multi-million-dollar legal judgment, Katie's guilt rapidly morphs into a desperate, defensive panic. Caught in the absolute center of this catastrophic collision is Brooke Logan Forrester, who finds herself trapped in an excruciating psychological labyrinth. Brooke is suddenly forced into the impossible position of choosing between the two most important pillars of her life. On one side stands her husband, Ridge, whom she loves deeply and whose desire to protect his father's legacy she fundamentally understands. On the other side stands her sister, Katie, a woman Brooke has fiercely protected her entire life, a sister who is now facing total financial and professional annihilation. Brooke is acutely aware that the Logan brand's designs are stolen, as she has previously voiced her intense disapproval of Katie and Bill's actions. Yet, the sheer brutality of Ridge's lawsuit, orchestrated by the vindictive Steffi, feels like a massive overreaction that threatens to permanently destroy their family dynamics. Brooke attempts to play the role of the desperate peacemaker, engaging in emotionally shattering confrontations with both Ridge and Katie. In her marital home, Brooke begs Ridge to reconsider, pleading with him to find a settlement that does not involve dragging her sister through the mud of a public courtroom. She argues that the emotional collateral damage will be irreparable. However, Ridge, hardened by Steffi's influence and his own righteous indignation, remains entirely inflexible. He insists that Katie brought this upon herself the moment she decided to broadcast stolen property across the globe. The marital bed becomes a zone of silent hostility, the warmth of their relationship rapidly freezing under the shadow of the impending litigation. Simultaneously, Brooke's desperate pleas to Katie end in explosive, tear-filled arguments. Brooke urges Katie to surrender, to drop the designs and apologize to Eric before the lawsuit consumes her entirely. But Katie, fueled by a toxic mixture of immense guilt and deep-seated inferiority, perceives Brooke's advice as yet another instance of her older sister siding with the Forresters against her. Katie accuses Brooke of never truly believing in her potential, of always prioritizing Ridge's happiness over her sister's success. The historic, unbreakable bond of the Logan sisters begins to violently fracture, the lingering resentments of decades past weaponized in the heat of this unprecedented corporate war. As Katie teeters on the edge of emotional collapse, Bill Spencer steps fully into the fray, awakening the ruthless, calculating persona of Dollar Bill. Bill views Ridge's lawsuit not as a legal challenge, but as a deeply personal insult and a direct threat to the woman he loves and the empire they are building together. Bill has never been one to retreat from a fight, and he certainly will not allow the Forrester family to bully Katie into submission. Recognizing that the legal merits of the copyright infringement case might heavily favor Eric, Bill decides that the only way to win is to completely change the rules of engagement. If the Forresters want to play dirty by threatening bankruptcy, Bill resolves to play significantly dirtier. In a move that shocks even his closest allies, Bill orchestrates a vicious, highly coordinated smear campaign aimed directly at the sterling reputation of Eric Forrester. Bill understands that public perception is just as powerful as legal precedent. He deploys the vast, unchecked power of the Spencer media conglomerate to begin planting insidious stories in the press. The campaign is designed to paint Eric not as a victim of theft, but as a bitter, declining patriarch who maliciously reneged on a sacred promise to a struggling female entrepreneur. Bill's strategy is to attack Eric's mental acuity, suggesting that the legendary designer is losing his touch and is now resorting to frivolous lawsuits to stifle the innovative competition presented by the Logan brand. When Katie first learns of Bill's retaliatory smear campaign, she is struck by a wave of profound horror. He aggressively reminds her of the millions of dollars on the line, of the future they're building for their son, Will, and of the sheer arrogance the Forresters have shown in trying to crush her dreams. He convinces her that this is no longer a matter of right and wrong, but a matter of brutal, unvarnished survival. Slowly but surely, Katie's guilt is entirely consumed by a blinding, defensive anger. She begins to internalize Bill's narrative, convincing herself that Eric truly did betray her first by abandoning their partnership. She justifies the smear campaign as a necessary evil to protect her hard-earned success from the elitist gatekeeping of Forrester Creations. This psychological transformation marks a tragic turning point for Katie. The woman who once prided herself on her strong moral center and her deep capacity for empathy is now actively participating in the character assassination of a beloved family figure, all in the name of protecting her corporate profits and her newfound status. As the smear campaign gains terrifying momentum, the public fallout is catastrophic. Tabloids and fashion blogs are saturated with ugly rumors about Eric's competence and Forrester Creations' internal instability. The Forrester family is completely blindsided by the sheer viciousness of the attack. Steffi's fury reaches an absolute boiling point, validating her initial belief that the Logans are toxic parasites. Ridge is left trembling with rage, his resolve to destroy Katie legally now cemented by a deep, personal hatred for the pain she is causing his father. The corporate rivalry has officially descended into a blood feud, with both sides utilizing weapons of mass destruction that guarantee mutual devastation. The impending legal battle looms like a dark storm over Los Angeles, promising a courtroom spectacle that will expose the darkest, most closely guarded secrets of both families. The sterile, unforgiving environment of the court will become the ultimate battleground. Depositions are scheduled, forcing family members to testify against one another under the brutal scrutiny of ruthless attorneys. The exact nature of Eric's verbal promises to Katie, the timeline of his departure, and the precise details of how the designs were acquired will all be dragged into the unforgiving light of day. Every emotional manipulation, every broken promise,